Diolch yn fawr i'r Green Room. Thank you very much for coming to the Green Room. After 9 months away, we're coming back for one special performance, live streamed from Sustainable Wales at 5 James Street, Porthcawl. Now, I'm told that the virus doesn't go into self-isolation, so at the end of this event, that 7 people in this room might have COVID. Who knows? But we are all keeping our distance. And we're here tonight to celebrate or read from one of the recent Sustainable Wales projects, which is called Ein Milltir Sgwâr, Our Square Mile. And Sustainable Wales commissioned 12 people to write about their square mile, about what is their idea of the value of their square mile, live, and can they imagine a future for that area. And that idea has spread a little bit. So the first example of a square mile will be written in London by Merrin Hutchins, and I'm going to read it. Merrin's square mile is Kentish Town, Archway, Dartmouth Park, and up Highgate Hill. And I think her square mile is inevitably conscious of the lockdown and what is happening with our pandemic at the moment. Merrin Hutchins on the hill. A blue to the Whittington. We ease through the traffic, siren sounding, lurch over the road bumps, up the hill, and my heart thumps and flutters at rhythm and no music. April. Blue flickering lights pass my windows, night after night, silent in the empty street, climbing to the hospital. People die. 1871. Speckled monster axe. Carriages bring the sick, the pustula, shedding scabs out of the miasma below and up the slopes to the smallpox hospital set on this hill on the fringes of London. All the beds are full. They are turned back. What, you say? Smallpox, Victorian times? Didn't Jenner find a vaccine in 1796? Wasn't it made compulsory? Yes, but the anti-vaxxers led protests, held meetings, formed leagues, published papers. And Christian, dangerous, and unnatural and detestable process. A most tyrannical invasion of us. Better a felon's cell than his babe. No one wants smallpox as a neighbour. The contagion that could spread through the air, through the water, invisible, in cities. The rich in Gothic palaces on slopes above London objected to new hospitals. Sir Rowland Hill, inventor of the postage stamp, took his campaign to Parliament. And funeral processions climbed the hill. Black horses decked with ostrich plumes, hooves clattering, black carriages, flowers, the agony of parting. Only those who could pay lie in this cemetery under obelisks and angels, stacked in vaults and catacombs and mausoleums. Rest in peace, affectionate remembrances. We shall meet again. This is where Dante Gabriel Rossetti had his wife open dead of night to retrieve the poems he had buried beside her. Here lay Michael Faraday, George Eliot, and Thomas Sayers, the bare-knuckle fighter with his dog. Here is a memorial Sir Rowland Hill. And Karl Marx, a giant bronze head on a granite pedestal, defaced, daubed, now video monitored. Thousands visit it a year. The Chinese and Cubans pay homage. The Americans are curious. All leave with snaps and selfies. Me and Marx. Workers of the world unite, they said. The point is to change the world. Others climbed the hill to worship. The Archway Irish were their passionate at Holy Joe's, disciples of Coleridge, the sage on the hill, who looked down on London and its smoke tumult. Nothing is so contagious as enthusiasm, he wrote. Except smallpox, I say. Fans who created small shrines after George Michael's death, flowers, framed photos, flags, scarves, looking out for angels, just trying to find some peace. Dick Whittington climbed halfway. Then, summoned by Bell, turned again to fame and fortune. His cat marked the spot. In the lockdown, we walked. Traced my roots up the hill, down the hill, round the hill, and the pattern would be distinctive as a fingerprint. Now, once again, cars crawl up the hill, the daily commute, the weekend getaway. But I still walk in late September warmth, crunching over beech mast and acorns. Today, my heart beats inly. Today, the sun shines. Today, we can forget. Thank you, Marion Hutchings. I think that's a tremendous piece of writing, a tremendous example of My Square Mile. And My Square Mile will, that example of Marion's writing will be in the second volume of Our Square Mile. And I think Our Square Mile is an example of an idea that is current, that people want to use, make flourish. I think that's a superb piece of English language writing. The second tonight is a poet and a musician. I don't think he's brought his guitar, but he's going to read some of his poems. I think his first section is 3 poems. Please welcome. Please put your hands together wherever you are for Jerry Ray.
Is it okay in this pregnant board? Okay. Right. Thank you, Rob. With the mask. Glasses. Otherwise I can't read. Okay, there we are. Keep it calm. Okay. Good evening. The poem is called String Theory. Kite spilling onto the floor, possibly a Welsh word for knows what. In the slaughterhouses, the cows huddle. Remember once a piece of string 1,000 miles long with my father on the other end, unable to speak into the cup or hear those strange vibrations. Catgut, kitgut, submucosa for guitar string, stretched intestines scraped with a fat knife. I put my thoughts into my pocket for half a century or more and plucked the strings for blues and jazz, guitar upon the floor, where I rest my body now and lay blood of slaughtered animals, no suture to stem the flow. This next poem is called A Baritone of Slaughtered Whales. This is about my school experience of music, particularly with one teacher. Baritone of Slaughtered Whales. Today I am a cello, bowing longer sounds along the length legato strings to draw a broken heart, a baritone of slaughters by Bach. Today I am a violin, perky, plucky, pizzicato, on top of the world of trifling matters, a country boy of fiddling trifles. Today I am a terrible trumpet, blasting notes in a stadium of diabolical chance. We have to win in a game or else we fly a honeybee into the bog. Today I am a triangle or a glockenspiel in a lesson from a teacher, pale with music, copying notes into a book I never read. Am I doing another one? Another one? Okay. I'm going to read this one about God. This is a poem about God. My concept of God, perhaps. It's called Man Upstairs. Man upstairs, floorboards breathing the length of 2 rooms. Then urination. Music to my ears, as you can imagine, like waterfalls in a deep dream, and then the sound of the celestial flush. I've never seen the man upstairs, though I can feel his presence now, every night. The same, and me lying here, listening, the doors closing like ghosts in a haunting. I've never seen him, the man upstairs, never seen him. Moved in 6 months ago, I believe, but who knows exactly when. The sound of children's feet on weekends, sometimes, otherwise the same. Always the same at 3 a.m., twilight, the hour of God, with white beard, just like my own. I've never seen him, only the floorboards breathing, only the floorboards creaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. I've got to apologise that. I thought you was great. I thought Jerry was marvelous. It occurred to me tonight, poor readers for men, for middle-aged men. How on earth has that happened? Okay. All right. Our fourth reader, our third reader, is Paul Woodford, who will tell us a little bit about what he intends to show. Paul is a poet, but a particular kind of poet, as he will describe to you. Please be standing in your homes for Paul Woodford.
Hi, I am not of the spoken word. I am a visual poet. The term visual poet or vispo contains a promise that between poetry and the visual there is a kinship that allows us to cross from one domain to the other, some kind of ease or natural rite of passage. I've already been asked what my work's, and I can't answer that. What I will do is to give you some maxims that I have worked. Here's the first. A visual poem is a machine for the manufacture of multiple meaning. A visual poem should create its own world, not reframe my personal experience. A blank page is just a field of infinite possibility. A visual poem that can be understood is just journalism. Every visual poem should explode with staggering absurdity. So, what do you see? They're short, repeating images, all manipulations using several programs, photos captured mostly by iPhone. The text that goes with the work is usually shown side by side, but tonight you're going to see it in front. So this should be shown now. The text there, stop, a linear reading. It sets up conditions required for Zizagia.
Paul Woodford, a Vispo, first time we ever had a visual poet in the green room. But I think it's the word a lot of us are going to hear a good deal more of. The fourth middle-aged male performer, is a wonderful photographer, a seeker after wells and holy places, a teacher, a creator of many artistic initiatives. He lives in Blangarrow. Later on, I'm going to read a poem about Philip Cope, Blangarrow. But before that, Philip Cope will show some of his own images and talk about them. So please welcome Phil Cope to the green room.
Thanks, Robert. I'm a Cardiff boy originally, but I actually, for the last 35 years or so, I've lived in, as Rob says, in the Garrow Valley, which is a tiny 6 mile long dead end valley in both senses of the word. And I've been putting a book together for Seren on the Garrow, on my home, my square mile, if you like, for the past couple of years. And then, of course, pandemic hit, and it changed things quite a lot. I imagined that I kind of had it pretty well sorted, the book, but the pandemic forced me to look further, wider, higher, deeper, perhaps. And one of the most fascinating things that I discovered, which you won't find on most maps, certainly not contemporary ones, is the huge number of burial chambers, principally Bronze Age burial chambers, barrows that are there up at the top of the hills. And this poem, which is called Freddie's View, is one of those round barrows, the Fochwen round barrow, which is, as you'll see in some of the pictures. The pictures are of, I think, 4 or 5 different round barrows. The ones to the end of a barrow I've only just discovered, which is, I think, the most beautiful of all of them. Anyway, Freddie's View. Old Outer always preached that every man must learn at least 6 things if granted a full life. I found that if you were to bring down a bird, you had to aim at where it was going, not where it was. That the sun always rose, even when it didn't. That her old tales didn't make storms or cold disappear, but would sometimes warm the heart. That we should caress as many things in our small world as we could, and that no stone could be broken perfectly unless it wanted to be broken. These rocks, pushed down on ancient sleds of ice, arrived here long before my people, and it was our job to rearrange them into circles and straight lines. But as a child, I did not understand why on my 5th anniversary I had to hurl 3 of these special stones one direction, as high and as far as my young arms could manage. Throwing those first child's polished pebbles, I suppose I hoped to make some kind of mountain here. I learnt much later that where they had landed was to be my tomb, added to each birthday season by blue-stained hands for weathered bones and ashes, all my picked, burnt remains. I pass this place almost every day to gather water from the rock pool's eye, and always in the company of our mountain wind. But this gathering pile meant nothing much to me back then, even though it bore my name. I loved the views out beyond the rivers to the waves on which our Ausa said we had arrived, sick and hungry most for solid ground and elevation, to dream our new beginnings slowly into life. The days back then were always measured by the distance you could or could not see, although we knew deep down the sky belonged to cloud and rain, to sun and moon, to buzzard, swift and crow. And I threw many other stones, of course, to scare deer, to kill a rabbit or a bird, and once, just once, much later on, a man. I used to sit up here at night and watch the movement of stars, some racing wild, some crawling now like me, and others falling from the sky. And as I too grew older, slower now and nearly blind, this place assumed a new identity, a different character, where no longer striding rock to rock, my body shed of its influence, though feeling much, much heavier, weighed down, it seemed, by air alone. I slipped and spilled my vital red one night into these stones, a day or two beyond my 20th season, and well before that darkening world of men arrived, more skilled in metal, war, and weapons than we were. Boy with an old water job found me up here, drained pale and as broken as our granite. But Auser always said that everything we touch or see or walk upon has its beginning and one day find its end, and that in any case we all were living somewhere tiny, insignificant, wedged tight between creation and destruction. Up behind us the river sources, and down to the hostile plain and sea, enclosed by wooden hills of wolves and bear and fear. I tried to follow Auser's tutoring and touched all of these stones up here, rode them through the air, heard their songs in rain and storm, observed their colours changing, listening in to their conversations with passing, nesting, creeping, grazing things. Mine always was an unmarked grave, of course, but when you climb up to my destiny of rock, sit and listen for a while and try to find a little of what left of me up here. I know we never met, but try one day to watch the sun's slow rise and fall, illuminating, then extinguishing these boulders, and feel the heat or rain or wind upon your skin, and these sharp foundation stones, my bones, cutting into your bare feet. Thank you.
Philip Cope, another example of our square mile. And in fact, the first three examples of our square mile are to be placed together in a magazine called New Welsh View in the winter issue, and that will appear I believe next week. The three writers are Peter Finch, who's writing about Penellan in Cardiff, and Laura Wainwright, who's writing about Newport. And Laura is interesting because she has been commissioned to write a new column for Sustainable Wales, and that will begin around about February next year. Laura's Square Mile will the future of the Reen area of Newport, but it will also think about her family who are brought up there, and her column will next year will feature a lot of interesting things through the viewpoint of not a middle-aged man, but a young mother. Thank goodness for that. And the third item in that triumvirate of miles is by myself. It's Fun Wen. Some people call Fun Wen Pink Bay in Porthcawl, but the better name, I think the true name for it is Fun Wen. And I think you'll see some photographs, some of which are taken by Peter Morgan, some by Philip Cope, and one or two by maybe Eamon Burke. I'm not sure, but this area attracts lots of photographers. So let's have a listen to this. Fun and Wen. And this begins with a map reference. Name, Fun and Wen Rocks, Bridgend. Place type, coastal landform. Location, grid reference, all that kind of thing. County Unitary Authority, Bridgend, Penabot, Country, Wales. A long preamble from the SS map. Fun and Wen. 1. A life of sorts. Undoubtedly a life. I love it. I lived at Wave's Edge in the white quartz. That life spent listening to shells, but how else should I spend my time? Salt around the pools today, like chalk where their dead bodies lay. Yet somehow a promise will be kept. Towers of smoke above this beach, its clints and grikes or rain might reach. But wait, were there volcanoes on the Gower? I've been to Pompeii and seen the last bus arrive, its timetable scorched an inch of ash. The slaves buried alive, the prostitutes buried alive, the gladiators buried alive, the dog walkers in plastic bags buried alive, the sunbathers smearing factor 40 buried alive, the lifeguards with their highlights and Samoan tattoos buried alive, the brawling boys and their silver whippets buried alive, the philosophers in their caves buried alive, the girl who sells Mivis and Magnums and Soleros buried alive, and all of them not 2 meters apart. Thank the gods I always wear a mask. So who are these people who build these tracks, lie with the bone white dead we all must become? Are our children the fossils of the future? Might be millennia ago, or a part of Nectar's fairground pickles. Yet a life of sports, undoubtedly a life lived at the wood's edge in its quartz. A hut for one night, built driftwood and the sea's plastic. Yet something once flourished here and might so again. The cults will rise and fall away. Aeons it might take, but eventually each tribe returns to its territory. Sandstone like blood under the sea, and veins of course that have led me here. But who are these people building with sticks white as ivory? A life of sorts, admittedly a life lived at the wave's edge in the white quartz. Now and then, golf balls and jellyfish fun on when. Towers of smoke above the steelworks beach, or the scalding rain and burning light of the Vesuvian night. Salt around the pools today, like chalk where once the bodies lay, and no way back until this driftwood reassembles itself. It sticks white as ivory, and we can all lay ourselves down amongst its terrible bones. That poem is called Fun on When, and it will appear in the New Welsh Review from the 4th of December. That's next week. The next read is Jerry Ray, and he's coming back with 2 poems, I believe. Jerry Ray.
Hello, once again. This poem is about the transportation of live animals. It's called At the Shrine of the Gold Goat. They are pushed in shadows, the cows and the sheep and the pigs and the goats, goaded onto the sailing boats to be fattened or slaughtered with sleight of hand. Better to be on hook than the hoof, bound for the knacker's yard, bones for glue or meat for flesh. They were on their way to the Arabian Peninsula, later to be transported somewhere near Arat, or on dhows from Somalia to the Levant. Inanition or salmonella are causes of just a few deaths, and if injured, the animal is quickly euthanized, slit by the throat at the shrine of the golden goat. Thank you. This one is called Walking the Wolf. It's about observation of dog in Porthcawl, Minnie Crufts. Walking the wolf. I'm walking the wolf over sand, marram cutting, weather stinging, boat on the strand. And the wind is ghosting the hollow over the soul of a breen ammonite. On the promenade, the dogs are on show like favoured breeds, Labradoodle, Cockapoo, Schnauzer and Shih Tzu, all best in show in the sunshine of parenthood, babies on leads or fluffy toys in the fairground. Over there, Lump of driftwood I pick up and throw for retrieval. My wolf, now by my side. Thank you.
Jerry Ray, and back lectern comes our Vispo, Paul Woodford.
I used to be an artist. Then I became not a poet. Now I refer to myself as an image processor. My sketchbook is my browser history. My work resembles a data trail. Visual poetry should be as effortless as waking up and just existing. Visual poetry is the management of emptiness. Thank you.
The management of emptiness, did you say?
It's being shown now.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much indeed. For his second reading, Philip Cope will maybe again talk about something that's going on in the Garrow Valley. It's up to him. Philip Cope, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, this is a short response to something that actually did happen to me. A very strange thing at the time. While Hill's strange sounds, Legs 11 in lockdown, booming from house speakers in our rediscovered maths of contact and community, our fragile new algebras of faith. And its bad numbers, those infected, lack of PPE and ventilators, the newly unemployed, businesses going to the wall, no toilet rolls, and death. We're playing distanced bingo in the streets, staying alive, 85 for charity and hope. In our full houses, we're keeping our distances. Number 2, me and you, in a state 28, in danger of not knowing where we're going, forgetting where we've been, inside the geometry of COVID-19. And on the lower lake, 2 little ducks, 22, Dirty Gertie at number 30, and Mary behind her garden gate, locked down safe at number 8. Under Dog's orders, number 9, Red Raw, 64. Duck and dive, 25. Down on your knees, 43. Hitting the floor at 74. 67. Stairway to Heaven.
Thank you, Philip Cope. On this return to the green room, I note that amongst the audience, there are 4 people who went on that walk. Philip Cope returned, and I was there as well, and I wrote a piece about the Garrow Valley Walk that Robert Minhinnick, myself, and Philip Irwin with Philip Cope enjoyed. So I've written something called At the Cairns Above Blind or Philip Cope. And again, this poem begins with a map reference, which is interesting, I think. And it's Mynydd Llangainwyr, elevation 568 meters, 1,864 feet. So we were high up. 1. Rubbing our eyes, not robbing our eyes, at a dragonfly above the Garrow source, spring or seepage, still unsure. Because it takes hundreds of springs to make one river. But the people who create the kiss and the cairns and the axe factory amongst the thistles and shrews must choose locations carefully, rubbing their eyes and rub their eyes between Steepholm and Penavan and the Gwyr and the Gwryd. For one day only, or maybe 2 in their year, the air clears and they find the world is stretching until it is stranger than Cornwall, Phoenicia, America, and melting because, the psychedelic of sight. Corn thee to Picus Dei, and millennia later, the unnamables possess names miraculously out of language chemistry. But those places had already become ideas in the old geezers' minds, and in the beyond, each like the chief old geezer's yellow coat, and later farms until the steam coal reveals itself. The forests are sown over the farms, black Sitka on their needle beds, beloved of arsonists and the spray boys, dragonflies themselves. And now in masks we drive along Gwendolyn Street and Katy Street and Oxford Street and T. Maynor Avenue, and the street parties are full swing, and another morning arrives on our scratch-card planet, and we stand rubbing our eyes, nobbing our eyes at the people knocking off from the parachute factory, and another shift going on to pack the gorgeous silks, walking away and walking home, and there is thistledown in the darkness. It's race around us in King Edward Street and Pulcan Terrace, and I know these invisibles are everywhere, but they are still following a leader's yellow coat. And on that wonderful walk, the leader in the yellow coat was one Philip Cope, and that's why I mention him, especially because thank you, Phil, taking us on a marvellous exploratory walk to parts of Blaengarrow, the Garrow Valley, that we've never experienced before. Thank you. If there's anybody else who reads something, please do. Speak now or forever. Hold your tongue. If not, thank you everybody, anybody who's looked in to the green room on the 27th of December. November. Is it November? November. It's November. Who knows? Indeed. If there's anybody left, thank you very much. If there's anybody who'd like to join a chat about this experience, you have a moment or two to ask. I think it'll be monitored. If there is anybody there who'd like to comment. They've all gone. Where do you mean? 9 people?
Yeah.
9 people?
That's more than us.
That's great. That's more than us. Thank you. Okay. Well, if there's nobody who'd like to comment, thank you very much for looking in. Diolch yn fawr. Hope to see you again soon. Maybe not under these circumstances. Hwyl fawr. Swim.